My name is Daniel. I'm 27 now, but the story I'm about to tell started when I was barely 12, the first time I realized I was invisible to my own family. It begins with a suitcase, a sun hat, and the soft hum of my mom's favorite vacation playlist playing from the car's old CD deck. My younger sister Emily was bouncing up and down by the front door, her little pink suitcase already zipped up and waiting by her side, stickers of flamingos and glitter-covered pineapples slapped all over it like a child's declaration of joy. I stood behind the staircase, peering through the railing, watching them. Mom was laughing with Emily, helping her pick out which sunglasses she should wear, pink hearts or white circles. And Dad was loading the car trunk with suitcases, snacks, and sunblock. The energy in the house buzzed like a holiday movie. But no one said my name. No one asked me to get ready. So I waited like a fool. Maybe they had a surprise planned. Maybe they were playing some weird grown-up joke where they pretend to forget me and then call me out with a grin and say, "Gotcha, Daniel." But the minutes ticked by. Then an hour. Then the engine started. I ran outside, shoeless, heart in my throat. "Wait, you forgot me," I called, waving my hands. Emily rolled down her window and pouted. "You're not coming. There's not enough space." Mom said. My mom didn't even turn around. She said from the passenger seat, eyes fixed ahead, "Daniel, we've been through this. It's just a short trip. We'll bring you something back, okay?" And my dad, the man I once thought was my protector, just looked at me with this awkward half-apology, like he'd rather be anywhere else. Then they drove off, leaving me standing on the cracked concrete driveway, the wind from their tires tugging at the hem of my shirt. That was the first time I truly understood what it felt like to be optional. The afterthought. But that wasn't the last time they did it. No, that trip to Florida was only the beginning. Over the years, I was the child left behind more times than I can count. They said it was because Emily was younger, needed more attention, needed the break. They said I was strong, independent, that I didn't need the extra care. I believed them at first. Told myself I was the bigger person. But the older I got, the more I realized that wasn't strength. It was neglect. And the worst part? Emily thrived in it. She bloomed under the spotlight, grew addicted to it. While I scraped through school, worked part-time jobs to buy my own clothes, and taught myself to drive using YouTube videos, Emily was chauffeured to every dance class, every piano recital, every whim and wish. When I got accepted into college, I remember how excited I was to tell them. I had gotten a full scholarship. Engineering. A big deal. I came home with the letter, smiling for the first time in months, and I found them sitting in the living room crying. Emily had just gotten dumped by her boyfriend of 2 months, and Mom was holding her like someone had died. When I told them about the scholarship, Mom said, without even lifting her eyes, "That's nice, honey. We're just really dealing with something right now." That night, I sat in the basement, alone, holding that letter like it was some ancient artifact no one would ever care about. I put it on the fridge the next morning. It stayed there for 2 days before Emily covered it with one of her cheerleader flyers. I didn't say a word, because by then I had learned words were wasted in a house that only heard her voice. I moved out at 18, took the first opportunity one could, worked 3 jobs during college, barely slept, graduated early. I didn't go to the ceremony. No one would have come anyway. Meanwhile, Emily didn't even finish college. She dropped out after her second year, said she wanted to explore herself, and my parents praised her for being brave. They let her move back in, rent-free, and Dad bought her a car. A new one. Said she needed it for job interviews. I was driving a 15-year-old Honda with a broken speedometer. And still, I told myself to let it go. That's just how families are. Some kids get more. Some get what's left. Then last year, everything came to a head. Dad's 60th birthday was coming up. A big milestone. I offered to fly home, take him out to dinner, cover everything. I was making decent money by then, running my own small construction firm. I called Mom, excited to plan something. She paused on the phone. Then she said, Oh, sweetheart, didn't Emily tell you? We're going to Bali that week. Just the 3 of us. My mouth went dry. You're what? It's a surprise. She's paying for it with her boyfriend. He's taking us all. Business class. It's a big deal. We couldn't say no. You understand, right? I didn't answer. I just hung up. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed in silence, staring at the wall. Something cracked in me that night. Not snapped. Snapping would have been easy. This was slower. A fracture, spreading through everything I thought I'd learned to live with. The next morning, I booked a ticket. Not to Bali, not to my hometown, but to the town where Emily's boyfriend ran his business. Because what I learned next would change everything. Not just for me, but for all of us. The plane ride to San Diego was quiet. Too quiet for a man filled with so much noise inside. I didn't sleep. I didn't watch a movie. I just stared at the seat back in front of me and thought about every time I'd been left out, dismissed, brushed aside for my sister's benefit. And now, here they were, off to Bali, sipping cocktails on a beach with umbrellas in them while I sat in economy, alone, digging for answers in a town that didn't even know my name. Emily's boyfriend, Jason Cross, was the kind of man people Googled. He owned a string of boutique fitness studios, was big on Instagram, always showing off his cars, his dogs, his muscles. His followers thought he was a motivational guru. His quotes were pasted under every photo. Discipline over desire, or only the strong survive. But all I saw was a guy who had no clue what strength really was. I checked into a cheap motel 2 blocks from one of his gyms. The front desk smelled like pine cleaner and burnt coffee, but it was quiet, and that's all I needed. That night, I sat on the creaky bed, opened my laptop, and started researching. Not stalking. Researching. Public records, business filings, Yelp reviews, Reddit threads. I found everything. Jason had started his business with a partner, some guy named Adrian Cortez. Only problem? Adrian vanished 2 years ago. No press. No vaivuta announcement. Just gone. I dug deeper. The LLC papers had been quietly amended 6 months after Adrian's disappearance. Jason was listed as the sole owner. No record of a financial transaction. No pavut. Nothing. Something about it didn't sit right with me. I kept digging. There were whispers, anonymous posts from former employees saying checks bounced, that Jason had a temper, that things went south after Adrian left. One even mentioned they saw Adrian and Jason screaming at each other in the alley behind the first gym, days before Adrian vanished. The deeper I went, the darker it got. I wasn't trying to ruin Emily's life. I just wanted to understand why my parents, our parents, thought this man was worthy of first-class family vacations while I was still trying to earn a seat at the table. I decided to go see the gym in person. Not the main flagship, the small one where it all began. The parking lot was cracked, weeds poking through. The sign was peeling. Inside, the receptionist was a bored-looking girl who barely looked up from her phone when I walked in. I asked if Jason was around. "He's out of the country," she said without interest. "Bali?" I asked. She blinked. "Yeah. How do you know?" I smiled politely. Lucky guess. I left without pushing. I wasn't ready to tip my hand. That night, I went back to the motel and made one more call to an old college friend of mine named Leo, who now worked in private investigations. "What's up, man?" "It's been years," he said, surprised. "You okay?" "I need a favor," I said. "A guy named Jason Cross. I think he did something shady to his old business partner. Can you look into it?" There was a pause. "You're serious?" "Dead serious." "All right," Leo said. "Give me a couple days." The wait nearly killed me. While Jason was posting selfies in Bali with my family, I was pacing a motel room that smelled like mildew and regret. Every post they uploaded felt like a jab in the gut. Mom on a boat, Dad smiling by a waterfall, Emily in some high-end spa, smiling like she'd never broken anything in her life. Not even a promise. When Leo finally called me back, his voice was flat. "You were right to be suspicious," he said. "There's something weird going on." My heart thudded. "What did you find?" Adrian Cortez filed a civil complaint against Jason last year. Claimed he was forced out of the business under false pretenses. It was sealed after a private settlement. The court allowed it because both parties agreed. But get this, Adrian dropped out of public life after that. No social, no job listing, nothing. He disappeared. But not completely. "What do you mean?" "He checked into a hospital 6 months ago under a different name. I only found out because I know someone at that hospital. Head trauma. Says he fell off a ladder. No visitors. But here's the thing. When he was admitted, he listed an emergency contact. A woman named Evelyn Cortez. His sister. Can you find her?" "Already did. She lives an hour from you." That night, I drove through the darkened hills to a small home in a quiet cul-de-sac. Evelyn answered the door, holding a toddler on her hip and suspicion in her eyes. "Are you a reporter?" she asked. "No," I said. "I'm Daniel. I know what Jason did. Or I'm starting to. I think he's done it before. I think he's doing it to my family now." She stared at me. Then slowly, she stepped aside. "Come in," she said. "But you'd better be ready. Because once I tell you what really happened to my brother, you can't unknow it." I sat down on a faded couch and listened as Evelyn told me everything. About how Adrian had built the business from scratch, how Jason started as just a trainer, a flashy talker with big dreams but no real spine. How he cozied up to Adrian, then started forging signatures, manipulating clients, pressuring him to sell his stake. About the night Adrian came home bruised and silent, saying he was going to fix everything. And then the next day, he was gone. He was found unconscious in an alley behind the gym. Evelyn said, her voice shaking. A head wound. No witnesses. He couldn't remember anything. Still can't. I sat there, stunned. "Why didn't you press charges?" "We tried, but without evidence. The police called it an accident. Adrian just wanted to disappear after that. Said it wasn't worth the fight." I leaned forward. "But it is. He can still fight. I can help." Evelyn stared at me like she was searching for something in my face. Trust. Maybe. Or purpose. "Why do you care so much?" she finally asked. I swallowed hard. "Because that man is now the center of my family. And I'm tired of being forgotten while the devil eats at their dinner table." She nodded. "Then maybe it's time we make him choke." I left Evelyn's house that night with a flash drive, a folder of old documents, and a mission. Evelyn had gathered everything she could over the last 2 years. Texts between Adrian and Jason before the accident, financial records showing irregular withdrawals from their business accounts, and a single grainy security photo of Adrian slumped beside the gym's dumpster with blood matting his hair. It wasn't proof beyond a shadow of a doubt, but it was enough to light a fire. I didn't sleep. I went back to my motel, sat on the floor with my laptop, and started mapping it all out. I wasn't just going to expose Jason. I was going to wake my parents up, make them see what they were so blindly celebrating. Emily might have thought she'd won the lottery with Jason, but all she'd done was hand her heart to a man who chewed through people and spit out bones. By morning, I had a plan. First, I sent an email to a contact of mine, Melanie, a small but ruthless investigative reporter who owed me a favor from my college days when I helped her with a story that got her first journalism award. I sent her the whole file, Evelyn's evidence, the sealed court case, the hospital records, even screenshots of Jason bragging online about his solo success, never once mentioning Adrian. She replied within an hour, "This is gold. Give me 72 hours. Then I made a second call to my parents. Mom answered. She sounded relaxed. "Hey, sweetheart, we just got back from the spa. Isn't it amazing here?" I forced a smile into my voice. "Sound great. Is Jason around?" "Oh, he's on the beach with your dad. You wouldn't believe how well they get along. He said something about business expansion advice. Daniel, he's so ambitious. You could learn something from him." I let that slide. "Mom, I want to ask you something." "Of course. If you found out Jason hurt someone to get where he is, would you care?" The silence on the other end was long and brittle. "That's a strange thing to ask, Daniel. Just answer." "Well, I mean, if it was true, of course I'd care. But Jason's not like that. He's generous, respectful. He paid for this whole trip." I nodded slowly, unseen. "Right. Okay. Enjoy the beach." I hung up. Didn't wait for a goodbye. For the next 3 days, I did nothing but wait. Ate granola bars, refreshed my inbox every hour, watched the news on low volume. Then, on the third morning it happened. My phone exploded with messages. Melanie had published the article. It was titled, "Sweat, Lies, and Silence: The Dark Truth Behind San Diego's Fitness Kingpin." It was brutal, beautifully brutal. It laid out the court case, the mysterious injury, the business manipulation, even included quotes from Evelyn, who bravely went on record. There was a before and after picture of Adrian, smiling and strong in one, hollow-eyed and hospital-gowned in the other. And there, nestled halfway through the article, was a brief quote from me, When a man builds his empire by stepping on the skulls of the forgotten, someone eventually comes to collect. The article went viral. Fitness influencers started reposting it. Former employees commented publicly, adding their own horror stories. A woman claimed Jason made inappropriate advances and threatened her job when she rejected him. A man said Jason made him work with a fractured wrist. And then the bomb dropped. Jason's main investor pulled out. His business license came under review. Lawsuits were threatened. Meanwhile, I didn't say a word to my family. I waited. And then, 3 days later, my phone rang. It was Emily. I answered. Her voice was shaking. What did you do? You'll need to be more specific. Don't play dumb. You sent that story to the press. No, I didn't send it. I uncovered it. There's a difference. He's furious. He said everything's ruined. He's blaming me. I stayed quiet. You have no idea what you've done, Daniel. Actually, I said softly, I know exactly what I've done. I told the truth. Something you, Mom, and Dad have never been willing to do. Why? Just because we didn't take you on that trip? I laughed, but there was no joy in it. Emily, this isn't about a vacation. It's about a lifetime of being treated like an afterthought, of watching you be handed everything while I fought for scraps. And now you've aligned yourself with a liar, a fraud, maybe worse. You deserve to know who he really is. He loves me, she snapped. No, I said. He loves what you give him. Access. Image. He's using you, Emily. Just like he used Adrian. Just like he's used everyone else. She was quiet. For the first time, I thought maybe, just maybe, something cracked. I didn't know, she whispered. Then maybe you should start paying attention to the people you trust. I hung up. An hour later, Mom called. I didn't pick up. Then Dad. Then Mom again. I let them stew. That night, Leo texted me. You started a war. Europa? No. I ended one. But it wasn't over yet. Because what I didn't know, what none of us knew, was that Jason was about to go down swinging. And when he did, he would try to drag everyone with him, including my family, including me. The fallout came fast and ugly. 2 days after the article dropped, Jason held a live stream on Instagram, shirtless, pacing back and forth like a caged wolf. The video was unstable, his voice shaking, not with fear, but with fury. There are people out there trying to destroy me, he snarled into the camera. Lies. All lies. I built this from nothing, and now some jealous losers and ungrateful parasites want to take it all away. He didn't name me, but he didn't need to. My sister texted me a screenshot minutes later. He knows. He's going to come after you. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. The truth was already out there, bigger than him now. But Jason wasn't done. The next day, my parents came home early from their trip. I know because my building security called me. Jason had shown up at my apartment. Not to talk, to break something. According to the security footage, he stormed into the lobby in a rage, demanded to be let up. When the front desk refused, he punched the glass entry door and cracked it. He was escorted out, screaming my name. I filed a police report the next morning. They called it criminal mischief and threat of harassment. It wasn't much, but it was enough to get a temporary restraining order. Jason vanished from social media after that. No new posts. No gym selfies. No podcast clips. Nothing. But what I wasn't prepared for, what broke me in a way I didn't expect, was what happened next. My dad showed up at my office. I was reviewing blueprints with my foreman when reception buzzed. There's a man here. Says he's your father. I stared at the wall for a full minute before standing up. When I walked into the lobby, he was sitting with his hands clasped, staring at the floor. I hadn't seen him in 2 years. Daniel, he said, standing slowly. Do you have a minute? I nodded, wordless. We walked out to the parking lot. It was cold. He didn't speak at first. Then he said, I didn't know. Didn't know what? What he did. To Adrian. To your sister. To you. I looked at him. You didn't want to know. His shoulders sank. That's true. I think we liked the idea of Jason more than we liked the man himself. He made things easy. Made us feel chosen. I stared at him. And I didn't. He winced. You always felt distant. Independent. Like you didn't need us. No, I said, my voice low. I just stopped trying when I realized nothing I did would ever be enough. He nodded slowly. We failed you. Yes, you did. He reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a small manila envelope. "What's this?" I asked. "Something I should have given you a long time ago." I opened it right there in the cold. Inside was a check. $50,000. "Your college fund," he said quietly. "We saved it, but we used most of it on Emily. Medical bills, tutors, vacations, all the things we thought would make her feel better. I know this doesn't fix anything, but it's yours now. Nostrin spunto." I held in my hand and felt nothing. Not joy, not anger, just emptiness. "Money doesn't fix people," I said. "I know," he replied, "but it might be a start." Then he said something I wasn't ready for. "We're cutting him off. Jason, he's not welcome anymore. Emily's staying with us for now. She's broken." I didn't answer. He looked at me, eyes glassy. "Please come for dinner next week. Just dinner. No expectations." "We'll see," I said and walked back inside. That weekend, I received an email. No subject, no name, just a PDF attachment. I scanned it for viruses, then opened it. It was a scanned copy of a handwritten contract, one between Jason and Adrian. It outlined an equal partnership. Adrian's name was on every asset. It was signed and dated, with 2 witnesses. I forwarded it to Melanie. She replied 5 minutes later. "This changes everything. His empire is built on a lie." The article update dropped the next morning. Within 12 hours, Jason's remaining sponsors dropped him. A new lawsuit was filed, this time from Adrian, with a real legal team behind him. It went national. CNN, Business Insider, even a late-night show made a joke about fitness influencers with fangs. My phone buzzed all day. Strangers thanking me. Survivors saying they felt seen. Former clients sharing horror stories. And then, Emily. She called me late that night. Her voice was quieter than I'd ever heard it. "He's gone," she said. Left a note and his key. Said he hopes I rot with my weak family. I didn't know what to say. "You were right," she whispered. "About everything." I waited. Then she asked, "Do you hate me?" I sighed. "I don't hate you, Em. I just stopped trusting you. Can we fix it?" I thought for a long time. "We could try," I said. "But I'm not the one who has to prove anything now." She cried then. Quiet, broken sobs. I didn't hang up, just listened. Maybe for the first time in her life, she understood what it felt like to be on the other side of the glass. Forgotten, fractured, alone. But that's the thing about pain. It teaches you who you really are. And sometimes, if you're lucky, it sets you free. The next day, I drove to my parents' house. It was the first time I'd been back in 5 years. Mom met me at the door. She looked older, like the light inside her had dimmed. "Hi, sweetheart," she said. I didn't hug her. Not yet. "Let's eat," I said. That night, we sat at the table, Mom, Dad, Emily, and me. The silence was loud, but so was the effort. For once, we were all looking in the same direction, toward the wreckage, toward whatever came next, toward something that maybe, just maybe, could become family again. It's been 6 months since the night I sat down at the table with the people who forgot me for over 2 decades. A lot has happened since then. Jason is being sued in civil court by Adrian's legal team. The documents Evelyn found, paired with the original partnership contract and the hospital records, built a bulletproof case. Melanie's second article went viral, bigger than the first, and this time national news stations ran with it. They called it the Empire of Egos. Jason tried to fight it, tried to post one last video calling it a witch hunt, but even his most loyal fans had seen the rot. His businesses collapsed. One by one, the gym shuttered, investors pulled out, the PR firm dumped him, and his brand deals dissolved. I heard he's in Mexico now, laying low, pretending to build something new. Let him. That man doesn't build, he consumes. Meanwhile, Emily stayed with my parents. For the first few weeks, she barely left the house. I visited once a week, always hesitant, always waiting for the other shoe to drop. But it never did. She didn't try to defend him. She didn't ask for sympathy. One night, I found her sitting in the backyard, staring at the sky, no phone in sight. "I was so in love with the way he made me feel," she said, her voice low. "Like I mattered. Like I was someone. I didn't even realize he was using me the same way we used you." I didn't say anything. I just let her speak. "Mom and Dad," she hesitated. "They're trying. I see it. But it's different now. like they're waking up from something. Maybe they are, I said. But don't wait around for them to be who you needed. Be who you needed. She nodded. That night, she handed me something. An envelope. What's this? I asked. I sold the car he gave me. I don't want anything he touched. I want you to have the money. I opened it. $12,000. You built everything from nothing. I bought my life. It's time I earned something back. I didn't accept the money. Not then, but I knew she meant it. For the first time in our lives, she was looking at me not as the background character in her story, but as the brother she never really knew. As for my parents, it's been a long road. Dad started therapy. Mom joined him. I didn't expect that. They asked me to come once just to listen. I did, and I heard things I never thought I'd hear. We didn't know how to love you the way you needed, Mom said, hands shaking. We confused silence with strength. We were wrong, Dad said. Not just about Jason. About everything. We see it now. I believe them. Not because of their words, but because of what came after. They started showing up. My mom brought lunch to my job one day. No reason. My dad came to the site we were building and just stood there, watching the crew, asking questions. They were clumsy, awkward, but present. That mattered more than they knew. We're not healed. We're healing. There's a difference. I don't think I'll ever get back the birthdays, the graduations, the dinners I ate alone while they packed for Emily's dance competitions. I don't think I'll ever fully trust them again. But I don't need perfect. I need real. And now, for the first time, we're real. As for me, I've expanded my construction firm. Hired 3 new full-time employees. One of them is Adrian. He showed up a few weeks ago, quiet and unsure. I want to build something again, he said. Not just buildings. Something that lasts. I shook his hand. You've come to the right place. We started slow, but we're growing. Foundation by foundation. Beam by beam. One morning, we were installing windows on a renovation downtown when he looked over at me and said, "You know what the worst part was?" I paused. What? It wasn't losing the money or the company. It was knowing that someone I trusted thought I was disposable. I nodded. Yeah, I said. I know that feeling. He looked at me. But you fought back. We both did, I replied. And we kept working. Last week, I went back to the house I grew up in. My mom had invited me for dinner. Just me. No show. No kitchen. When I arrived, she was in the kitchen, apron on, chopping vegetables. She looked up, smiled, tired but honest. I'm trying, she said softly. Every day. I nodded. That's all we can do. After dinner, I wandered into the living room, stood by the fireplace. On the mantel, there were framed photos, Emily's graduation, Dad's birthday, Mom in Bali. But tucked in the corner, there was something new. A picture of me, college graduation, alone but proud, and beside it, a small brass plaque that said, Daniel, our foundation. I stared at it for a long time. Then I touched it gently, turned toward the window, and whispered to no one, I'm home now. But not because they brought me back. Because I built the door myself.